LA Chargers wide receiver Josh Palmer. There's been so many mock drafts of the Chargers taking a wide receiver like Jalen Hyatt, for instance. I haven't mocked a wide receiver to the LA Chargers, but that might come later on in the week. We'll see. I've heard of Addison going there. I've heard of a few others, but ultimately Jalen Hyatt as a field stretcher, a different type of player, because as we know with all three of these big wide receivers, Josh Palmer, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, they're all big, slow guys who just can't stretch the field. And the Chargers were throwing out Jalen Guyton.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They were throwing out like
DeAndre Carter.
DeAndre Carter right out of the slot. They were throwing out these. They just pick a guy. They may look for a speed play, especially with a new offensive coordinator with Kellen Moore, to stretch the field in the way that we haven't seen before. And I think that could hurt Austin Eckler and hurt Gerald Everett if they add a speed guy. And I think that Josh Palmer would be most likely the biggest fantasy asset hurt by a wide receiver added in this draft.
Yeah, I totally agree that there's a potential for a big hurt on Palmer. I think also there's a little bit of potential for, if he does have the experience in the offense, and Keenan Allen, he got those soft tissue injuries last year, and those always worry me. Keenan Allen could come back and play 16, 17 games this year, and I wouldn't be too surprised by that, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he only played 8 or 9. Because sometimes once you get those soft tissue injuries going a little bit later in the career, they tend to stick with you and you have a little bit more trouble shaking them. Mike Williams, as we know, he's the guy who, like, my God, he has no regard for his body at all. Puts himself up in the air, and he's great at coming out with his contested catches. But my gosh, you want to see him landing in the high jump pit, the way he goes up for those balls.
Billy Muzio says that Mike Williams is the only player in the NFL who can land on both his head and his ass in the same play.
Oh, see, there you go, a high jumper, just like that. Billy and I we're channeling each other on that. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Shout out to Billy. One of the best in the biz.
No doubt. But
all right.
Anyway, yeah. So yeah. Palmer, I think there is a route to upside, but I think he's being overdrafted right now.
Oh, I am out on Palmer already. To be fair, his ADP on Underdog is wide receiver 61. So I think there is a little bit of the general consensus is that they will add, a wide receiver, or that's what the general public is looking like. But I'm trying to look up here wide receiver grades, and I'm pretty sure minimum targets, Josh Palmer was out of 41 qualified wide receivers last year. He was 38th in PFF receiving grade. He was one among the wide receivers who got targets. He was just plain bad. The only wide receivers worse than Palmer, Adam Thielen, Gabe Davis, and Mac Hollins. Okay. But it just so happens that we talked about another one of the players on this list earlier, in Gabe Davis. These not good wide receivers who have had spurts of fantasy relevance are just in danger because they haven't done enough to earn the job. And I think Josh Palmer was one. And then I had mentioned maybe 2 months ago, how Donovan Peoples-Jones was in that same boat. And then the Browns go and trade for Elijah Moore. So I think we're looking at a similar pathway for Josh Palmer.
Yeah, I'd much rather have DPJ than Palmer at this point. But yeah, that's exactly it. And they could even draft a tight end in LA for the Chargers. I don't think they're super happy with Everett, though he did earn a lot of targets last year. Some of those were almost by default. There's going to be a lot of moving pieces.
With Keenan out, you're right. It was that he was forced into this role. Gerald Everett was a sleeper for me last year, which panned out pretty nicely. But
and me as well.
We
got bailed out, Bradley. We can say it. We got bailed out, okay?
I'm okay with it. He won me. I think I was top 12 in Fantasy Pros accuracy rankings contest for week 1 when I had Gerald Everett as like a top seven, top 8 tight end that week. And yeah, it looked pretty nice. It looked pretty nice on that call.